So I define fear for myself as sort of something that just causes like deep anxiety. My childhood fears would probably be spiders, heights, and the fear of abandonment. My dad has a massive fear of spiders, so I think just seeing him react the way he did, I just kind of adopted that. But the other two, I have no idea. I think it's evolved, like, as a child, it wasn't as bad. I'd get over, like, the sort of fear, but as, like, an adult now, it's more constant that I'm, like, always thinking that someone's gonna leave. So I try to leave first to stop myself from feeling that feeling, or I get over attached to try and compensate. Being a part of the LGBT community and, like, I guess my fear with abandonment, I haven't fully come out to my family, or they don't really believe that I am what I am. So I'm kind of scared that once I do fully tell them everything, that they won't actually accept it. Or if I come home with a partner, that they won't fully accept that. The whole abandonment thing again, I'm just always afraid that my friends will just one day drop me and just leave me, which I know is kind of irrational, but I still can't help but feel it.
I define fear as something that makes me panic. My childhood fears were the dark and also being alone. I always had these like small fears of like the dark. I would always like think I was seeing like little skeletons and stuff. So I guess skeletons as well were always in there. Little like demon people. The dark because I would always see something more, or being alone because I was afraid that like I have that out of sight, out of mind thing, but I have that with people. If they're not there, there is no one there, and I'm the only person on earth. I think it started because my mom would often leave, and she would tell me she'd be back in a minute or two, and then she just wouldn't be, and that freaked me out quite a lot. In the dark, I don't know when that started. I think that kind of went with the being alone thing as well. Like I think they were kind of hand in hand. Those fears, that they both kind of followed me until growing up. And I think they're still my two biggest fears, but like it's evolved in the way that it's not so much, I don't think that I'm the only one in the world anymore, like how I did as a child. Like I would believe that just everyone was gone. Everyone in the entire world was gone. But like now as an adult, it's more of being alone but with myself. And it's like that disassociation. That's the alone that I feel. Like when I feel alone, I disassociate and I don't feel real. Even if there's people around me, I still feel really alone sometimes. As far as being LGBT, just that fear that people are gonna think they know more than they do. They're gonna find out that I'm trans, and then they're gonna say that, oh, I know these things, I understand things, and then say something really ignorant or something, or just treat me differently, and just that I can't be myself, or you know, I can't be open about everything and like let people truly see who I am, because they're gonna think differently. That's the biggest fear I think for me. It affects the way I act and I dress and stuff, and I'm pretty openly queer in the sense that like everyone kind of, if someone finds out that I'm bi, they don't really blink an eye at it, but I still hold back from wearing something that maybe might show, you know, my chest scars, or might think that I'm a little too feminine sometimes, especially at work. I think work is my biggest thing because I don't have any support there or allies there that I know as well who are with me. I'm always worried about the government and like something happening as far as that goes. Like I'm always afraid that they're gonna change something, because being in the States and having them change something in it, going from okay to terrible within like seconds, And I'm always afraid of that. And the Australian government always kind of has me on edge with that as well, even though they seem a lot better. I'm always afraid that they're gonna just change something, and I'm gonna have to go off testosterone, or, you know, I lose all my support that I have.
I think for me, fear can be described as like that really uncomfortable feeling that just sort of like it shakes you to your core kind of thing. Yeah. Growing up, I had a fear of ET. And like pretty standard, the dark. And then as I got a little bit older, probably 11 or 12, I developed this awful fear of moths. I had this one bad encounter with a moth. And my mum was scared of moths as well, so I think I saw her freaking out about it, and so I was like, oh, there's something to be afraid of. ET, not afraid of ET anymore. Still makes me a little uncomfortable though. Moths, yes, still afraid of moths. As soon as I see one, I freak out. And the dark, I'm fine with the dark now. I don't want to sound like too edgy, but like I prefer the dark now. It's very comfortable. When I was a kid, I had a dream that the characters from South Park were coming up my childhood home's driveway, and I was hiding under the kitchen table, and they came in and they murdered my whole family. So I remember that pretty clearly. For me, rejection, absolutely. It's just that one thing that I'm like, I can't even like speak when I think about it. If I think about the people that are closest to me not accepting me or not wanting to be around me anymore, if it was because of my like sexual preferences or anything, it was terrifying to me. I can't stand it. Sometimes I think like I know where sort of that sort of fear of rejection kind of comes from, like because when I was a teenager and I sort of figured out that I was bi, I was in a sort of country town, not accepted at all. You have to sort of stick to the norm. And I'd already been bullied when I first moved to the school. So I was so scared that if anyone sort of found out that as well, that I would just go back to having no friends. And yeah, I think from that, it sort of stems from that a little bit. And also just my family, they're accepting, but only to a certain degree. Like they still love me and support me, but they just do not ever speak about anything to do with LGBTIQ+, you know. So I think I'm scared to even just sort of bring it up sometimes, like, oh, like I'm interested in this girl, or like I'm going out on a date with a girl, and I don't even say anything. Yeah, I think it sort of stems from that sort of when I was a teenager figuring it out, the sort of environment that I was in, the context that I was in, and it sort of translated to now, I think, 5 or 6 years later.
I mean, I guess I define fear more as a feeling of discomfort at this age. I think it's hard to feel fear in the way that, like, it's depicted to children. My childhood fears were very much revolved around death and sickness. I was part of the church, and that was spoken about a lot, and I believe that's where the fear sort of came from. But I was also deeply afraid of whales for no reason. It was such an irrational fear. I was just terrified of them. I was just like a very small child, and whales were so big in my mind, like sea monster level big. I mean, obviously I probably like heard of like sea monsters and the Loch Ness monster and like the dinosaurs that were in the sea, and I was just like, those don't exist. You know what does? Whales. Yeah, spooky. I'm not really scared of death anymore. I feel like that's something that we all just have to come to terms with, and it would suck if you don't, because death is a very real thing that like happens on a day-to-day basis. Sickness as well, like I think I'm less scared of it. There's still like worry, especially with some sicknesses, you know, COVID, but yeah, I'm not as spooked by sickness. I think it was more because of me getting sick as a kid that made me fear it, but like I know how to deal with being sick now. Yeah, I'm not scared of whales anymore. I have a lot of fears related to being part of the LGBT community. I mean, obviously, I'm constantly scared of getting hate crimed, or like someone just doesn't like something about my outward appearance or who I am and decides to be aggressive towards me, which is a very real thing. But also, like, I guess just body dysmorphia and gender dysphoria are both like big things, which I mean just like comes down to being perceived in general, I guess. Like, I hate the idea of someone seeing me the way that I see me, or seeing me and not liking me.
I feel like it's super easy for like straight cisgender people to kind of forget that they don't have to, like, whenever they leave the house, they don't have to be afraid.
Yeah, it's like I'll intentionally tone myself down, or I'll intentionally think about where I'm going and if I'll be with people before I go out, and like before I like make decisions on how I'm going to be presenting myself that day, because there are just so many people that will have a problem with it. Yeah.
Definitely, like the worst times, like whenever I'm with you guys, I'm fine with dressing and acting like the way I do naturally, but the times I've actually been like hate crimed or like verbally or physically assaulted it's always when I'm alone.
Yeah, bathrooms, absolutely terrifying. Like, before I was at the stage that I am now, just I'd been verbally assaulted and one time physically assaulted in the bathroom just for being there and paying. Like, I'm sorry that I have bodily functions. But like even now I haven't had a issue in the bathroom for like a year now, but every time I go in, like, it raises my anxiety and I'm like genuinely in like fight or flight.
Yeah, there's like this trauma that we aren't allowed to talk about because we're seen as like complaining or whiny or just bitching. Like, it's better now, you know, like it's 2020.
It's not better. Just because it's like a newer year doesn't mean anything's fucking changed. Like, you can change laws and shit, but you can't change people's like actions. Like, they're still gonna fucking hate crime you even if there's a law against it.
And like they have this idea of like they think it's safe because, oh well, if I ever saw anyone being attacked, like I would step up and do something, or I would call the police. But like the worst time I was ever attacked was in the middle of the supermarket. Like, people were around me, no one cared.
But I think that's the best time for someone to attack you, if you're in the middle of like a public place and there is a group, because the bystander effect is real, and it's always like, oh well, there'll be someone better suited to defending this person and they'll walk on.
Like, or like they don't want to deal with it because it's time out of their day.
Yeah, they're busy.
We went so off topic.
Yeah.